What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing you Ravens content every single day. If you want to see that daily Ravens content, please make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And what I'm going to be talking about in today's video is basically Alejandro Villanueva. You plan to visit Baltimore, check out with the Ravens, and basically I'm going to go over, my thoughts on it, how good he is, what he would bring to Baltimore, and whether or not I think that the Ravens should really go after him. But as always, comment your thoughts and opinions down below. I'd love to see the different comments. Love to see the different opinions as well. I will say thank you to everybody who watched the Trust the Bank podcast, the most recent recording. Those 3 segments posted. I do apologize for those segments because the audio levels for myself and Joshua were very different. I was very loud. Joshua was very quiet. I apologize. That won't happen again. But thank you to those who, kind of stuck it out with it because, I apologize. We realized it after the recording, but we really didn't want to record another 45 minutes, but I apologize for that. But getting into this video, if you don't know anything about Alejandro Villanueva, 6'9", 320 pounds, 32 years old. So he is a massive dude. He went to West Point, so the dude's big. He's physical. He's a very strong guy. But if you've heard the name and you don't really know why you've heard it, it's because he was the guy who stood on the field when the Steelers were in the locker room, during the national anthem. And he kind of was the focal point of, that kind of discussion. And, I don't want to get political or anything like that. So I'm not going to speak, on that subject. I just wanted to say that is why you may have heard the name overall. But getting into kind of who he is as an actual player, he's a 2-time Pro Bowler. 2017, 2018. So only 3 years removed from that, which is, very, very good. My favorite part about Villanueva is the dude plays. He plays all the time. He's never really hurt. He's playing in every game. We need that at the offensive line position. If you look at recent seasons, whether it's Ronnie Stanley injuries, whether it's Orlando Brown injuries, heck, we saw Marshall Yonda injuries when he was here, and obviously Marshall Yonda's a legend, but being healthy at the offensive line position is a must. It's really a must at all positions, but Ravens fans, after we had to watch last year, Ronnie Stanley goes down and then the entire offensive line crumbled. We need health. We need guys that can get on the field, and he's somebody that can get on the field. Now, when I talk about his play style, I will say I know the game of football. I can tell you pretty much every single position. A guy. If you bring up a guy, I'll be able to talk about it for NFL players because I watch them. With college players, I just don't watch them nearly as much. I don't watch a lot of college football. So when I do scouting stuff, I have very much less to go on, a lot less things that I'm going off of. But for NFL players, I know these guys. I know how good they are. The exception is the offensive line. I don't know how to grade offensive linemen. I don't know. I just don't have the ability to look at an offense. I've never been an offensive lineman. I don't have the ability to watch an offensive lineman and be like, oh yeah, he's good, other than the fact of looking at how many sacks he has. So when I'm grading offensive linemen, I use other people's sources. I always say these are my opinions. You can get this mad at me about them. I really don't have an opinion. I don't have the ability to scout him and tell you how good he is, how quick he is off the line or anything like that. So I'm using PFF. For this, I typically will never use PFF unless I'm talking about a guy and I'll add it in. So I'm using PFF. So if you want to get mad at me saying the grades or whatever, get mad at PFF. I just can't evaluate it. Most people can't. Almost no football fans, unless you're we're an offensive lineman or you're an offensive line scout, you're not going to be able to evaluate guys at the offensive line position. Most of us can tell, wide receivers, DBs, all that type of thing. It's a lot easier. But offensive linemen, I'm going to be using PFF. So I will preface that because I see a lot of people on Twitter, Steelers fans and stuff, and they're like, oh, he's horrible. Yeah, get him to Baltimore. TJ Watt will eat him. I've seen that on Twitter, but come on. You don't know very much about the offensive line unless you're a scout. And I highly doubt that most of the, 16-year-olds on Twitter are, professional scouts. So looking at his last few seasons, last year he allowed 3 sacks, had a PFF grade of 74.6, which is a solid grade. Nothing elite, nothing, top 10 level, but it's solid. A bad grade is in the 60s or below. I mean, it's a really bad grade if it's below 60, but like 60 is like, it wasn't very good. But if it's a rookie, a 60 is okay. But he's mid 70s, and that's what he's been, kind of throughout his career. His best season was 2018. He had over an 80 grade, but pretty much every year, I believe, except for his rookie year, he's been over 70. And he had a 74.6 last year. Had 4 penalties, which was the 30th most, which is very, very good. I mean, only 4 penalties in 16 games. Love to see that. Hate penalties, especially for the Ravens when, their entire offense is built upon, staying on schedule, getting to that 3rd and short, because obviously the Ravens prefer not to, get into 3rd and longs, as do most teams, but the Ravens is like built upon 3rd and short situations. We hate penalties. Having the, tied for 30th most penalties is very good. So love to see that. He allowed 3 sacks, but he's playing with Big Ben Roethlisberger, and this isn't old Big Ben where he's shedding every sack attempt. This is like new Big Ben where like a guy gets in and they just like deck him. So not playing with like a Lamar Jackson. So when a guy allows 3 sacks on Lamar, it's like way worse, because Lamar like has the ability to evade a ton of sacks. So, just kind of keep that in mind. He's not playing with a super mobile quarterback. And then, 2 years ago, he was playing with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges, who are 2 of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen take snaps in the NFL. But in 2019, only allowed 2 sacks. So good job for Alejandro Villanueva, even though, we were rooting against him back then. But at a 74 PFF grade, did have 10 penalties. That's a lot. Now, I do question whether or not that's due to having, a different signal caller. I mean, he was playing with Big Ben the entire year. So getting that kind of chemistry, getting used to his hard counts. PFF doesn't share like, oh, it was a false start or, oh, it was a holding. They just say how many total penalties. Could have been a fair amount of false starts, types of shifts and things like that, which I assume so because I do remember like, their offensive line being bad because, well, again, I'll say it, Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges are 2 of the worst football players I've ever seen play in the NFL. But overall, those are solid numbers. Nothing. He's not going to come in and become an elite pro. I don't expect him to get to Pro Bowl level unless the Ravens do very, very well. But he would be able to come in. Now I will remind everybody, he plays left tackle. He would have to play right tackle for the Ravens. So he would be playing next to Kevin Zeitler, which is 2 good veterans that don't allow a ton of sacks, don't give up a ton of penalties. And neither of them are going to be crazy elite players, but they will be solid players on the offensive line. And then obviously we have our left tackle in Ronnie Stanley, who is, he's tremendously elite. He's arguably the best left tackle in the NFL. So that's always a good thing to have on one side. And then to have 2 solid veterans on the right side, like he's better than DJ Fluker, who was lining up a lot of the time at right tackle for the Ravens after OBJ switched to the left side. Like he'll be better than that, which is not hard to do, but I'll take it. So that's something that you can think about, but it's whether or not he would be able to switch to right tackle. And I think he would, just because the tackle positions, I mean, most people coming out of the draft, all the best tackles play on the left side. So, switching to right tackle, it's more about whether or not he would want to. And I honestly don't know. That comes down to the Ravens being able to convince him to play on the right side. So I can't speak to what he would want to do. The right tackle gets paid less, but he is a veteran. The Ravens would give him decent money because they do have some money to spend. But in terms of why the Ravens should do this or would want to do this, one, the Orlando Brown situation. If we sign Villanueva, he won't be very good for very much longer. He would be able to come in and be kind of a placeholder player. We would be able to trade Orlando Brown Jr. Potentially for a draft pick or for potentially a wide receiver. Both things that the Ravens fans that I've talked to would absolutely love. So having a guy that would be able to step in, and then not only is it like that situation that I brought up, you can trade him, boom, get a pick. Trade Orlando Brown Jr. We trade up. We have pick. I don't know whether it's 21, 20, 13, whatever pick it is. Well, now we have a right tackle, so we don't need to draft right tackle early. So we can really focus on what we really need, whether it's center, whether it's wide receiver, or it's edge rusher. I don't know why I was blanking on that. We wouldn't have to draft an offensive tackle until later in the draft. We could draft a day 3 offensive tackle rather than being, kind of cornered into drafting somebody on day 2 where we have very limited amounts of picks. This would be very, very beneficial because the day 2 wide receivers are very good. There's some very good day 2 edge rushers. There's some very good day 2 centers. Shout out to Miners. I really love Miners. I think it'd be a great pick for the Ravens, but overall, it would just give the Ravens some versatility in the draft if they were able to meet with him and they're like, okay, yeah, this is a guy that we want to rock with. But I feel like that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are on, Alejandro Villanueva. The draft is a week away. And I do think I'm going to be on a live stream for Undrafted Sports. So I'll have more information out about that. But it'll be a lot of fun. So, go check out, Undrafted Media on Twitter. Right now, I'm actually running the Twitter account until somebody else can get it. But I'm going to be live streaming. I don't know exactly where, don't know exactly with who, but I believe I will be live streaming. And then right when the Ravens make their pick, I'll put out my video on, of course, what will be happening. So if you want to see that kind of reaction, you won't have to be in the live stream. You can just go watch the video when it's up on the channel, which will be right after the pick. So because I know a lot of other Ravens content creators are live streaming, whether it's Engraven or the Purple Rain podcast or, those guys. So shout out to them. You guys can be in their stream. And then, I'll post the thing. But if you want to see me talking with a bunch of other football fans, I know there's some Niner fans, Falcon fans, all those guys getting their insights, come join the stream. But I'll definitely tweet about it. I'll talk about it in other videos when we get more things situated in terms of what exactly we'll be doing. But thank you everybody for watching. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on Villanueva visiting Baltimore. And as always, subscribe for daily Ravens content. Like the video if you like the video, and I'll see all of you again tomorrow.